The Temple of Garni is the only standing Greco-Roman colonnaded building in Armenia and the former Soviet Union. Built in the Ionic order in the village of Garni, Armenia, it is the best-known structure and symbol of pre-Christian Armenia. The structure was probably built by King Tiridates I in the 1st century AD as a temple to the sun god Mir. After Armenia's conversion to Christianity in the early 4th century, it was converted into a royal summer house of Khosrow Vidukt, the sister of Tiridates III. According to some scholars, it was not a temple but a tomb and thus survived the destruction of pagan structures. It collapsed in a 1679 earthquake. Renewed interest in the 19th century led to excavations at the site in early and mid-20th century and its eventual reconstruction between 1969 and 1975 using the anastylosis method. It is one of the main tourist attractions in Armenia and the central shrine of hedonism. The temple is at the edge of a triangular cliff which overlooks the ravine of the Azat River and the Geghard Mountains. It is a part of the fortress of Garni, one of the oldest fortresses in Armenia, that was strategically significant for the defense of the major cities in the Ararat plain. It is mentioned as Gornias in the 1st century annals of Tacitus. The site is in the village of Garni in Armenia's Kotayk Province and includes the temple, a Roman bath with a partly preserved mosaic floor with a Greek inscription, a royal summer palace, the 7th century church of Saint Sion, and other minor items. The precise construction date of the temple is unknown and is subject to debate. The dominant view is that it was built in 77 AD during the reign of King Tiridates I of Armenia. The date is calculated based on a Greek inscription discovered by Martyros Sarian, a prominent artist, in July 1945 at the Garni Cemetery, recently brought from a nearby water mill. In the early 4th century, when Armenian King Tiridates III adopted Christianity as a state religion, virtually all known pagan places of worship were destroyed. The Temple of Garni is the only pagan, Hellenistic, and Greco-Roman structure to have survived the widespread destruction. It remains unknown why the temple was exempted from destruction. It became a tourist destination even before its reconstruction in the 1970s. Today, it is, along with the nearby medieval monastery of Geghard, one of the main tourist attraction sites in Armenia. The temple and the fortress are part of the Garni Historical and Cultural Museum Reserve, which occupies 3.5 hectares. In 2011, UNESCO awarded the Museum Reservation of Garni the Melina Mercury International Prize for the safeguarding and management of cultural landscapes for measures taken to preserve its cultural vestiges and the emphasis placed on efforts to interpret and open the site for national and international visitors. The square in front of the temple is a site of occasional concerts. Geghard is a medieval monastery in the Kotayk Province of Armenia, being partially carved out of the adjacent mountain surrounded by cliffs. It is listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site with enhanced protection status. While the main chapel was built in 1215, the monastery complex was founded in the 4th century by Gregory the Illuminator at the site of a sacred spring inside a cave. The monastery had thus been originally named Irivank, meaning the monastery of the cave. The name commonly used for the monastery today, Geghard, or more fully Geghard, meaning the monastery of the spear, originates from the spear which had wounded Jesus at the crucifixion, allegedly brought to Armenia by Apostle Jude, called here Thaddeus, and stored amongst many other relics. Now, it is displayed in the Echmiadzin treasury. The spectacular towering cliffs surrounding the monastery are part of the Azat River Gorge and are included, together with the monastery, in the World Heritage Site listing. Some of the churches within the monastery complex are entirely dug out of the cliff rocks. Others are little more than caves, while others are elaborate structures with both architecturally complex walled sections and rooms deep inside the cliff. The combination, together with numerous engraved and freestanding kakars, is a unique site, being one of the most frequented tourist destinations in Armenia. Most visitors to Geghard also choose to visit the nearby the Pagan Temple of Garni, located further down the Azat River. Visiting both sites in one trip is so common that they are often referred to in unison as Garni Geghard. The first monastery was destroyed by Arabs in the 9th century. Today, the monastery complex is located at the end of the paved road, and the walk-up from the parking lot is lined with women selling sweet bread, sheets of dried fruit, sweet sojok, or grape molasses covered strings of walnuts, and various souvenirs. A group of musicians usually plays for a few seconds as visitors approach, perhaps willing to play longer for money. The chapel of Saint Gregory the Illuminator, built before 1177, stands high above the road, 100 meters away from the entrance to the monastery. The rock-cut tomb gives access to the second rock-cut church. This church is known from an inscription to have been built in 1283, the donation of Prince Prash. It is cruciform in plan. The corners are curved and the drum is lined with semi-columns alternating with blind windows. Apart from stalactites in the shape of trefoils and quadrifoils, the decoration of Astbat Satsin Church features ornaments of rosettes and various geometrical figures. The front wall of the altar dais is decorated with a pattern of squares and diamonds. A realistic representation of a goat is found at the butt of the altar stair. Mount Ararat is a snow-capped and dormant compound volcano in the extreme east of Turkey, which was not seen because of snow. It consists of two major volcanic cones, Greater Ararat and Little Ararat. Greater Ararat is the highest peak in Turkey and the Armenian highland, with an elevation of 5,137 meters. Little Ararat's elevation is 3,896 meters. The Ararat Massif is about 35 kilometers wide at ground base. The mountain has been called by the name Ararat in the West since the Middle Ages, as it began to be identified with mountains of Ararat, described in the Bible as the resting place of Noah's Ark, despite contention that Genesis verse 8-4 does not refer specifically to a Mount Ararat. It is the principal national symbol of Armenia and has been considered a sacred mountain by Armenians.